Hello everyone, I'm GW Fan the Softcore Brony, and this is a special presentation all about the basic stats, resistances, and main menu for Breath of Fire 3. Yes, this is what took me so long to finally start the main LP proper of said game, and boy am I intimidated by the sheer amount of information. Perhaps some of you clicked on this video because you are too, or more likely you're just generally curious. So, hopefully, if that is why, this not-so-little explanation helps you. Just to restate the overall table of contents here, this video will begin with all the basic character stats, including hidden stats, and how resistances function, and overall how they work to the best of my research. I'll then go over the basic menu here, and its various functions, starting with item, and going on to ability, equip, and tactics, as well as how the formations work. So, let's get started. Basic stats here in the stats menu. Most are pretty self-explanatory for RPG veterans, but at least one is a bit more than it appears. We begin with the obvious HP, or hit points. You might also call them health points. If this reaches 0, then the character is, or rather can be, knocked out. More on that when I cover hidden stats. Next is AP, short for ability points. This is the MP, or magic points of the Breath of Fire series. These are used for the use of spells and many, but not all, skills, which I'll be getting into a bit later in the video here. Just know that, unlike the previous game, Ryu here actually likes AP a lot. And the more he has, the stronger he can be, in a sense. More on that in the Let's Play proper as well, when his main skills become available. Next we have PWR, short for power. This is a character's innate strength, plus the strength of whatever weapon they may have equipped. There. So, let's see. This is utilized when doing damage with the basic fight command, as well as various physical-based skills. Next, Def, or defense. This is a character's basic defense stat, plus the defenses from the basic armors, shields, helmets, and armor there, which I'm currently not equipped with for demonstrational purposes. This is used in the calculation of physical-based damage. Essentially, the higher the stat, the less damage you will receive from physical attacks. There is at least one otherwise magical-based skill that takes defense into account, but more on that in a separate video later. Next comes INT, short for intelligence. This is the one stat that is a bit more than it seems. Unlike the past two games where the stat didn't really do much that was significant, at least, and could pretty much be ignored, this time around intelligence functions similarly to the way the special stat did in Gen 1 Pokemon. The more you have, the stronger both your healing magic and attack magic will be. However, this stat also doubles as the magic defense stat. The basic formula for this is resistance percentage equals intelligence divided by 5, rounded down, and then that number divided by 100. At most, so-called magic defense maxes out at 50% reduction to magic damage. So, in that sense, if you reach 250 intelligence, you'll max out your magic defense damage reduction there. Any higher will not reduce magic damage taken any further. It should be noted, however, that healing and attack magic can still be boosted in power with higher intelligence, all the way up to the cap of 999 intelligence, so don't think you can just stop at 250, at least for a dedicated mage, anyway. Dedicated magic user, as it were. Of course, that being said, since magic defense in general is kind of mediocre in the long run, and also not a ton of enemies can even use magic besides bosses, you, oddly enough, can still essentially ignore this stat for anyone who's not a dedicated mage, despite what I said, and you'll be fine. There are actually two characters who will have practically no intelligence by the time you reach the final boss, so yeah. Don't worry about this one, except for the one true dedicated mage of the game. Not to mention, if you're really worried about your intelligence stat, the permanent intelligence boosting item is absurdly easy to farm later in the game. Easiest of all permanent stat boosting items, which is saying something since most of them are pretty easy to farm overall except for agility and guts. It should be noted that both Ryu and Tipo can be used as dedicated mages, but because of their overall stat spread, they don't have to be. Being a mage is better in the early and some of the mid-game than it is in the late game, where physical attacks are frankly insane, especially the big 3 physical skills that I will not be getting into in this video. Last is AGL, short for Agility. This is the character's basic speed stat minus the weight of their equipment. More on weight in the equipment portion of this video. This also works pretty much identically to the way it does in the Pokemon series. Higher speed means acting first in a round of combat. No RNG calculation is utilized. It's just a straight number, which I always prefer in RPGs that don't use an ATB gauge, personally. Also, it should be noted that any party member or members that have an agility stat that is double of the fastest enemy agility stat remaining in a given battle will get to take an extra turn in combat, even if it's a boss. So, higher agility is always a plus. Well, with the basic stats out of the way, let's go over your other stats, the one you basically can't check, also known as hidden stats. There are 6 hidden stats plus resistances, which are comprised of 9 different elements. Hidden stats are Surprise, Reprisal, Critical, Dodge, Accuracy, and Willpower. I'll talk about those first and then go over resistances. Hidden stats are different for most characters, beginning with the Surprise stat, which I consider to be the overall most mysterious because the amount of info related to what it specifically does is limited compared to other stats, at least as far as I could find. Surprise for Ryu and Tipo is 50, and Rei's Surprise stat is set at 75, the highest of any character. Basically, what this stat does is affect how likely you are to get initiative on enemies when you enter combat, or in other words, you get to take a turn without the enemies getting to do anything. How exactly that works, I basically had to determine myself based on running around and getting in random encounters, both with and without an accessory called the Hawk's Ring, which raises the character's surprise stat by plus 20 and does appear to stack. When you get into a random encounter, you'll notice these exclamation marks that appear over one or more, or none, of the party members' heads. Through my observations, it would seem that the higher a character's surprise stat, the more likely they are to get this exclamation mark over their head. Why are these important? In order to get initiative, all party members must get this exclamation mark over their heads, although you are not guaranteed to gain initiative when this occurs. This chance in itself could be a separate factor, or possibly, as I've read in a few sources, might have something to do with the average surprise chance of all party members. I should also note that enemies are capable of getting a first strike on you, or a surprise attack, and so far as I can tell, it would seem to only occur when none of the party members gets the exclamation mark over their head. In general, I don't worry about the surprise stat, but if you do want to avoid at least getting surprised by enemies, I would suggest giving at least one Hawk's Ring to the character with the highest stat in the party, or at least that seems to work best in my experience. Moving on to things I'm much more sure about, we have the Reprisal stat. This essentially is the chance to counterattack when hit with a physical attack. Unlike Breath of Fire 2, where only Ryu and Cat could do it, most characters can counter this time around. Ryu and Tipo have a reprisal rate of 12, or 12% chance, and Rei has the lowest chance of the characters who can counterattack with only a 6% chance. Unlike during the intro when you are a baby dragon, or whelp as it's called, you can only counter with your basic physical attack, even when we gain the ability to turn into a dragon again later. Next, we have Critical. This is the chance to perform critical hits. unlike most other hidden stats, there is not much you can do to change it. There are a few weapons that have a slightly higher chance, and you can boost the chance slightly while apprenticing under some masters, but that's about it, not including the at least 2 skills that are guaranteed to get a critical hit every time. Ryu, Tipo, and Rei all have a critical stat of 5, or just 5% chance. Whoop-de-freaking-do. Next hidden stat, Dodge. Pretty self-explanatory. The higher the stat is, the more likely you are to evade an enemy physical attack. Ryu and Tipo have a dodge rate of 6, or 6%, and Rei has the highest dodge rate of any character at 25, or 25%. I believe the only way you can slightly affect the dodge rate is while apprenticing under some masters. It should also be noted that enemies technically have a dodge rate as well, but almost everything has a dodge rate of 0. Only a special type of enemy called the Nut Troops and their later palette swaps called the Bolt Troops have a dodge rate that is set at 50%. Don't let that make you think you can easily hit any of the regular enemies though, because that leads us to the 5th hidden stat, Accuracy. This is the character's chance of hitting an enemy with their basic physical stat. Ryu and Tipo have an accuracy of 95, or 95%, and Rei has an accuracy rate of 100%. Go Rei! This is all regardless of the weapon they may have equipped, although there are very select few weapons that will increase accuracy. It should also be noted that most physical-based skills go off of a character's accuracy stat as well, with only a few exceptions. There's also that one magic skill that is based on the accuracy stat, but more on that in a separate video. And lastly, we have Willpower. This essentially is the same as the Guts rating from Breath of Fire 2, but it does work in a rather special way. I'll start by saying that Ryu and Tipo both have a willpower rating of 1, and Rei has a stat of 3. This is a very odd stat that I personally think is a little misunderstood by the fandom as a whole. What this stat does is affect the chance that an ability called Guts has of activating when a character's HP drops to 0, and also can activate more than once in a battle. When Guts activates, instead of falling, a character will survive with 1 HP, and any stat buffs or debuffs they were inflicted with will also stay active. Any status effects will be cured. The thing that makes it a little odd is how this is calculated. As I understand it at least, a user on GameFAQs going by the name of Second Advent did a deep dive into the code of the game at some point, and not only discovered precise facts about the overall mechanics, but also corrected some previous misconceived notions about previously known mechanics. This includes the exact calculation for Guts activation. It is as follows. If damage minus current HP is less than current willpower, then Guts will activate. That's what we know about how Guts works. Every time it activates, willpower is cut in half, rounded down. So a willpower of 1 will round down to 0, for example. It will not be restored until you've slept either at an inn or in camp, or a general story determined healing event. So, as most sources in this seem to indicate, so long as this is true and willpower is not 0, then Guts will activate guaranteed. Or, at least, I've seen people claim that in forums while citing this calculation. But, from personal experience, clearly that's not true, or at least not entirely so, because if it were true, then Guts would also activate the first time your HP reaches 0 after sleeping in an inn or camp. But it doesn't. Like I said earlier, Ryu has a willpower stat of 1. I've seen Guts activate at this point in the game when his willpower is still set at 1. Again, the calculation for Guts activating is damage minus current HP less than current willpower. But stop and think about that a moment. If Guts only activates when her HP reaches 0, then isn't damage minus current HP always going to be less than your current willpower, not counting a stat of 0, since I assume the calculation takes into account that HP cannot fall into negative numbers? If that's the case, then shouldn't there be another calculation that says, okay, Guts can activate, but here's another calculation now to determine if it will or not? It makes sense that that would be the case, but so far as I know from my research, a further calculation has never been revealed. So we know how Guts can activate it to a point, at least in as far as I can tell. I scoured various sources, and I can't find any further info on the subject besides that basic calculation. So I'm not really sure outside of that speculation. Now, does willpower affect anything else? Well, I've heard some sources claim that it also affects how likely you are to attack your party members while under confusion or so-called berserk status. But I don't have any way of actually testing that myself, so all I can do is relay that. Maybe it's true, and maybe it's not. But wait! I'm still not done talking about the willpower stats. The stat maxes out at 99, not that you have any way of keeping track of that outside of your own devices, but it can be, though whether or not it is even worth it is entirely up to you. It should be noted that it can be increased permanently with a not easy to acquire permanent stat boosting item called a Moxa. There is only one you get for free, and otherwise is a rare drop from one specific random encounter monster called a Fire Slug. I should also mention that you can get more of nearly anything in the game with a business called the Copy Shop later on, but that still takes a while. More on the Copy Shop in a much longer video later on about the village. You know the one. Oh man, I'm not looking forward to that one. But hey, while we're still on the subject of willpower, because this stat never ends, let's talk about glitches! So there's an accessory in the game that increases willpower by 10, called the Lion's Belt. However, just equipping the Lion's Belt by itself doesn't actually increase willpower. You have to equip it and then sleep either at an inn or at camp. That's not the glitch though, at least not exactly. The glitch is that once you've received this plus 10, you can just take the Lion's Belt off, because that plus 10 is permanent. Even if you sleep without the Lion's Belt again, your willpower will still be restored with the extra plus 10, as I understand it, at least. Two things to note: you can stack the effect by equipping 2 Lion's Belts to give yourself a permanent plus 20. However, I guess because of the way the game works in regards to willpower, once you receive the extra plus 20, you cannot gain any more free willpower from sleeping with the Lion's Belt again. Yeah, even though the plus 20 is permanent, sleeping with the belts again won't increase willpower any further. However, if you've only gained plus 10 while sleeping with 1 Lion's Belt before, you can override it with the plus 20 by sleeping with 2 belts. Don't ask me why it works that way. That's just how it is. As I've researched, anyway. Enough about freaking willpower now. Let's move on to resistances. Also technically a hidden stat, since there is no way to actually see it otherwise. Resistances are made up of 9 different elements: flame, frost, electric, earth, wind, holy, psionics, status, and death. Let's start with a combination of the 5 basic elements: flame, frost, electric, earth, and wind. Like any other RPG, these are all elements that various spells and certain weapons can take the property of. Holy as well, but that one's special, which is why I'm talking about it separately from the main 5 elements here. Now, regardless of whether I'm talking about these 5 elements or any of the other resistances, there is a series of numbers that are very important. The numbers 0 through 7. The code of the game represents 8 different resistance levels through each of these 8 numbers, with 0 representing more effective and 7 representing less effective. Just pulling up the wiki page for Breath of Fire series in general, we see what Flame, Frost, Electric, Earth, and Wind resistances look like. For most characters, this stat is set at 2, or a regular 100% effectiveness, basically, full damage. Looking at the scale here, if an enemy has a resistance of 1, or you do for that matter, then they would take double damage from the respective element. Resistance of 0 would be triple damage. Going higher on the scale, 3, you see how it says 75% normal damage, which means an enemy or party member has a resistance of 25% reduction to damage from that particular element. 4 is 50% reduction, 5 is 75% reduction to damage, and 6 is no damage or 100% resistance. We can also see the special 7, which in fact means that the target will absorb or otherwise heal when hit with that particular element. Moving on to Holy, this one is special because it calculates differently for attack damage and healing, and also generally scales way differently than the other elements. Technically, enemies cannot actually inflict Holy elemental damage on the party, same as the previous Breath of Fire games. However, all healing magic is of the Holy element, and rather than 2, the baseline for the stat is 5. Holy has 2 separate calculations that look like this. When it comes to Holy elemental attacks, which I should note are all physical based, except for breath attacks, we have the crazy looking scale up above here. Yes, that's right, the resistance of 1 or 2 is the same, double damage. And rather than absorbing, 7 is just no damage. But then we have healing magic. Why is it Holy Elemental, and why does it have this separate scale represented on the bottom there? 2 reasons. One is because undead enemies take damage when targeted with healing magic. They all have a resistance of 0, and thus take damage equal to triple whatever the healing would have been. The second is because for party members, if they increase their quote-unquote resistance to Holy, it will in fact increase the effectiveness of healing magic on that character. 6 being double the effect, and 7 being quadruple. And yes, there is a skill out there called Gloom that can make you or an enemy undead, and I believe a single piece of rare equipment that can make healing magic ineffective on you. There is also a single accessory that can raise your so-called Holy Resistance by +2. In general, I don't worry about Holy Resistance except against already undead enemies. Then we have the last 3 resistances, Psionics, Status, and Death. These are similar to the 5 basic elements, but have a bit of a different looking scale that otherwise is effectively the same. Psionics is odd sounding but straightforward. This is your resistance to stat debuffs, as well as one all-odd skill called Depress that lowers your current AP. I don't know why that one specifically is considered a Psionics ability, it just is as far as resistances go. Baseline is 2 or no resistance. Having less than 2 means that you have double or triple the odds of being inflicted with stat debuffs, which have their own separate accuracy depending on the spell or skill. 3 and higher is exactly what it looks like, 25% resistance, 50% resistance, and so on. 7 is effectively the same as 6 as far as I know, since there is no purpose or difference in having more than 100% resistance. So make of that what you will. Status, literally your resistance to all status effects. Baseline of 2, 0 resistance, otherwise works the same way as Psionics. Status effects are Poison, Blind, Confusion, Paralysis, Sleep, Egg, and for the purposes of resistance, the Gloom skill and I believe the Douse skill are considered a status effect. And last, technically, Silence, but I think there's only something like 2 enemies that can even inflict that on you as an individual status, so I wouldn't worry about it. Yes, there is also technically a status called Berserk, but it's effectively the same thing as Confusion, except there is no way to block it, probably because you can only inflict it on yourself in 3 very specific ways. I should note there are accessories that can block specific status effects, which is separate from overall status resistance, so just keep that in mind. Last is Death. Also works the same as Psionics and Status Resistance. As you might expect, this is zero resistance to instant death attacks, which oddly doesn't come up all that often, but also applies to skills that cut your HP in half or reduce it to 1. And for some godforsaken reason, absorption skills are also affected by death resistance. I don't know why, but it makes them utterly worthless against bosses, which, you know, like, all have a perfect resistance to death, of course, which is the only time I might even consider using absorption skills, so yeah, there's that. I never found a reason to use absorption skills anyway. Anyhow, I should also note that death resistance is not tied to the effects of the Kyrie spell, which instantly kills undead enemies, including the one boss that is undead and the few that have a low chance of being turned undead with the Gloom skill. Now, as far as basic resistances go, most characters have their resistance set at 2 and holy resistance set at 5 by default, but there are 3 characters that have special resistances. More on that when we recruit them in the Let's Play proper. Beyond this, there are special shops that I believe are called clinics, where you can temporarily raise any stat resistance except for holy for individual characters, but more on that in the Let's Play proper as well. And that is the basics of resistance. Our 3 starting characters here have the regular baseline resistances by default, just to make that clear. Alright, enough with all the crap that you can't see, or it's actually difficult to demonstrate from, well, the game itself anyway. Yeah, let's move on to talking about the basic menu, which is split between items, ability, equip, status, which I basically just showed you, tactics, and lastly, camp, which I don't feel the need to go over here because you can access camp with a button press on the world map anyway, and as far as I'm concerned, there is never a reason to do it from the menu here. So, first in the basic menu is items. It's split between, let's see, items, weapon, armor, and what the game calls options. Starting with items, this is where all the basic items are kept, the healing items, the battle items, you know, like the Molotov there, and, yeah, permanent stat boosting items, which I can't demonstrate, and the like. At least not at the moment, anyway. Now, going up to sort, we can sort them manually, if you wish. You know, just like that, blah, 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 blah. Put that there, put this here, put that there, if you want, what have you. I personally like to arrange them by order of lowest basic healing item. Let's see, do I even... Oh yeah, there they are, healing herbs, there they are. Yeah, lowest healing item to, like, highest, and then kind of go from there with other stuff like, well, these other items that I have gotten in advance. Some of which, anyway, that I've gotten in advance. It's all a matter of personal preference. There's also something of an auto sort there called normal and combat items. It doesn't really change much to choose between the two as basic healing items. Still stay at the top, no matter which of these two you use. But for whatever reason, yeah, ammonia is repositioned below basic healing items when you choose combat for some reason. Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know why it does that, but as a result, I prefer to choose combat first and then normal to make sure it's always near the other healing items where it's supposed to be. So, yeah, take that as you will. Also, this is the list that will appear when you choose items in the items option in battles, and of course will appear in whatever order you have set them for here. Let's see, anyway, next we have the weapons. I have a few here I got in advance for demonstrational purposes. Literally, this is just for weapons, besides manually rearranging them however you want there. We have one auto option that rearranges them from strongest to weakest weapon, regardless of whom can equip it. Incidentally, the order you have here also is the order that will appear in the equip menu for the respective character that can equip a particular weapon, both in this menu and during battle. Well, this menu, I should say. Yeah, notice it's in this order, the same order that I just arranged it. Yeah, strongest to weakest. Power-wise, yeah, these are the same, so it's not going to change much to do auto there. But yeah, we'll also change for combat as well. Let's see, I want to go to sort again. Let's see, did I have anything else to say? Oh, yes. So, yeah, I would start with power and then potentially manually rearrange them based on usefulness of other weapons you may want to switch in battle, such as elemental-based weapons, which I do not have yet, so... yeah, anyway. Next is armor. Notice I have 3 different kinds here. The, helmet, shields, and body armor there. Besides having the manual sorting again, which, yeah, you can do it in whatever order you want, even, you know, in places you don't need it, like that, if you really want to. But we have 2 other options here, defense and kind. Defense will rearrange them from literally, highest defense to lowest defense, regardless of the type. And then kind will sort them with shields, helmets, and armor in that order. And depending on whatever order you had before. So if I chose, I chose defense first, and then kind, and then kind. There we go. Yeah, so the higher physical armor defense is higher in the list than the, weaker clothing there, so. Now, I always like to use defense first and then kind, and then manually sort it afterwards, depending on if I have, like, elemental or lighter armor. More on that later. That has to do with the WG stat over there on the side. I'll be talking about that in a bit here. And temporarily going to a different save file because I forgot I hadn't actually populated the options beforehand in the other save that I was using for the demonstration there. Last on the menu is the option, which is where fishing gear, including bait, bait like, these, as well as rods, and I don't have any at the moment, but also where... Oh, actually, that's right, I do actually have that in this one. Oh, yeah, that's right. Let's actually put that in there, why not? Yeah, and where, also where our accessories go. Oh, this is perfect! I'm glad I actually had this extra save file, or actually got, pretty far into the game before I did this whole little thing here. So, we have one auto option, which is kind, which will arrange them as accessories, bait, and then fishing rods, as you can see there. Yeah, regardless of, putting that there, and it'll still rearrange them like that. So, since you are actually, might need these, I don't really find it particularly necessary to do this very often. But it's there. Anyhow, on any of these, actually, I'll go back to my other one. Oh, yeah, I actually have one of these here, too, in this file. I kind of forgot about that. So, if you wanted to, there's a permanent stat boosting item down there. Power food, among other things, and valuables. That also typically appears last on the menu. So, there's that for that. So, let me get back to my other menu again real quick here. Alright, back to my original save file that I was using for the demonstrational purposes, since for the most part it's, better populated, at least for options and, and all that. You saw a couple of differences I had back there. But anyway, on this, also on this menu, we can choose to drop if you, for some reason, don't want to sell the items. I don't know why you wouldn't. Yeah, there's no item limit like in past games, other than that we cannot have more than 99 of a particular thing in our inventory. Yeah, see, times 8, it can go all the way up to times 99, which I guess I actually could have done since we have the whole infinite croc tier pool in the forest there, but, you know, whatever. So, yeah, keep that in mind that there are some specific items we cannot drop or sell, but those won't come until much later in the game. And then last in the options is vitals, which, yeah, currently I don't have anything here, and I don't believe I have anything in my other menu either, or other file either. Yeah, these are story-specific items we'll pick up here and there, and, well, may or may not do anything specific with as the story dictates. No different from other RPGs that have important items. You can pretty much ignore these, you know, kind of like, you know, the ribbon in Final Fantasy VI, how it, like, doesn't have, it technically has some story relevance, but really doesn't ever come up. That sort of thing. Next in our menu is ability, which is where we can view any spells or skills a character may have. These are broken up into abil, which is short for ability, followed by sort, note, and gene. Yeah, first we have ability. This consists of 4 separate lists of various spells that a particular character may have learned, and is also how they will be displayed when you select abilities in battle. And the lists are heal, assist, attack, and skill, which I've also pre-populated here. Yeah, notice that not everyone has these at the moment. Yeah, Tipo and Ray are the only ones that have attack. Ryu does not, and what have you here. Heal is pretty self-evident. Healing magics here. Who'd have thought? Yeah, spells for healing, HP, reviving party members, curing status, and also absorption skills are here later on. Not that I ever used those. I've kind of explained why with the whole death resistance thing. What is up with that? Seriously? But yeah, then we have assist, which I don't believe anyone has at the moment. Yeah, this is where we have stat buffs, debuffs, and status effects, as well as a few other special spells that one particular character has later on, but I won't be going over that otherwise right now, or otherwise spoiling those spells here. Yeah, then we have attack here. Also, self-evident, offensive spells and skills that do damage, as well as the death and Kyrie spells are here, the latter two being instant death spells. And then last we have skills, which is the special element of Breath of Fire 3 that allows you to learn skills from enemies and characters called masters. For the record, I will not be going over masters in this particular video. Now, for the sake of demonstrational purposes, once again, I've already acquired, well, all the possible skills you can get before advancing to the first real dungeon. You can learn these with any character so long as they have room to learn more. Yeah, see how it kind of ends here at the bottom here? That's 10 total skills that any character can learn. So if this list is full, they can't possibly learn more, including with, well, the ability that I'll show off in actual battle later. So, yeah, fortunately you can unlearn skills anytime using the third option in the abilities menu called Note. Yeah, just get rid of it. And it'll actually go to a separate list that can be accessed at camp and then redistributed to whichever character you want, so long as you have an item. Which, do I have it in this one? Oh, I don't yet. Oh yeah, there it is. Yeah, called an item called a skill ink. I forgot I hadn't rearranged this particular one because I reloaded my file there. Yeah, so I'm still missing these, but I'll get them back. Yeah, demonstrational, etc. So, I would like to note again that I will not be going over camp in this particular video, so would you kindly please watch the Let's Play proper if you want to see that in action. And, oh yeah, there's sort, but yeah, there's no auto sorting. Well, I mean, there is with high AP and low AP, which damage. Okay, yeah, we don't actually have skills that have anything of note. But yeah, this does exactly what it sounds like. Abilities with higher AP will go first, and low OP will go, last, or will go first if you choose low AP. So yeah, I kind of tend to do low AP just kind of for the heck of it. But yeah, you can just rearrange it manually however you want, depending on usefulness. Now, last in the abilities menu is Gene, which, yeah, you can see for the moment is empty and will be roughly for the first 5th or 6th of the game. More on this in the regular Let's Play, but yeah, just so you know, this is basically a special item, special option that only Ryu can utilize, and otherwise is a key mechanic in the game later. Next is the Equip menu. 4 options here. We have Equip, Opti or Optimize, Fast, and Pool. Equipment is split up between weapons, shields, helmets, armor, and 2 accessory slots. So long as you have something else to equip, you can select whichever slot and choose, from the menu on the upper right there. One thing you'll notice with the equipment is up there on the top bar. Yeah, all the way at the top there. It gives the static boosts and WG, which is short for weight. Unlike Breath of Fire 2, where only body armor had weight, every piece of regular equipment has weight in this one. There's also one exception with a relative few pieces of regular equipment, such as the bracers and the bandana, which have a weight of 0. Weight affects a character's agility stat, and for every 1 weight, it will reduce agility by 1. I wouldn't be too worried about it, but there are going to be instances where you'll want to be faster than specific enemies, and may need to reduce your weight on a particular party member to compensate. You may also have 2 other options up here. Oop, there we go. Yeah, Optimize, which will just automatically equip the character with whatever the highest base power, weapon, and highest defense armors that you might have in your inventory. And yeah, otherwise you always have to select accessories manually, which in this particular file that I'm using, I don't have any, even though I could have demonstrated that in the other one. But I have more equipment to actually show off here, I believe, so yeah. Other option, we have Fast, which will auto-equip the designated member with the lightest but otherwise highest defense armor that you have available. I don't typically use either the Optimize or the Fast, but, if you want to, it's an option. So, yeah, there it is. And then lastly, we have Pool, which, oddly enough, this is how you unequip any piece of equipment, with the exception of weapons, because you can't even select weapons. As you can see there, characters must always have a weapon equipped of some kind. Yeah, we can, unequip whatever there, including it's also how you unequip accessories. So, yeah, you may or may not need this, mostly if you want to conserve money and switch equipment around from party members, but hey, at least it's better than Breath of Fire 2, where you absolutely had to have another piece of equipment if you wanted to change anything for a character's equipment. So, yeah, that's nice. Last in the menu is Tactics. This is the battle formations. These can have various effects on the party, including affecting stats, as well as the likelihood of being targeted by single target attacks from enemies. Now, from the start of the game, we have 3 formations available to us. Normal, get over there. Normal, defense, and attack. There are, in fact, 3 more formations that we won't be able to unlock for at least quite a while, actually, like more than half the game almost. I'll not be going over them in this video exactly, but I will be going over them in a separate video later on, once I reach that point in the Let's Play proper. And when I do, I'll not only add a link to it in this video description, but there should also be a link that has appeared in the upper right corner of the video here as I'm speaking. Even before that, that will take you to the rest of the formations as well, if you find that necessary. So that being said, let's begin with the first very important thing regarding any of the tactics, and that is party order. The order in which the characters are in is important because every formation also determines how likely each party member is to be targeted by a single target attack made by an enemy. Even in the normal formation, position 1, 2, and 3 are not quite the same. As there is an important set of numbers I previously discussed, which is the range of 0 through 7, that are, you know, a big deal for a lot of the game's mechanics, not only with resistances, but, you know, other things like stealing, drop rate, and learning skills. But there's another very important number to the game's mechanics. That simply is the number 16. As an example of this, anime AI scripts determine the specific actions of a monster based on a certain number out of 16, as I'm, well, more or less showing you with like one, or I don't know, maybe more than one monster on screen here. A bit more on the specifics of those in other videos for the Let's Play proper. The reason I bring up the number 16 in the context of formations is because odds of being targeted, even in a normal formation, are based around that number. Even though the normal formation has no special qualities and is, well, more or less neutral, it turns out it's not quite so when it comes to odds of being attacked by single target abilities. Originally, it was thought that every position in a normal formation had an even 33% chance of being targeted, but since the number 16 is not evenly divided into 3, this turned out not to be true. Again, according to Second Advent's findings, or at least I think it was him. It could have been someone else, but yeah, as far as I'm aware, he was the one who specifically found that. But yeah, the apparent more correct numbers are position 1 has a 6 in 16 chance of being targeted, position 2 also has a 6 in 16 chance of being targeted, and position 3 in fact has a 4 in 16 chance of being targeted, or 37% chance for positions 1 and 2, and a 25% chance for position 3. Yeah, 6 plus 6 plus 4 adds up to 16, which is what I mean by the number 16 being important, since odds are always divided into the number 16 in some fashion, so that they add up to 16 out of 16, or 1, as it were. In fact, if a character is knocked out in battle, the overall odds of being attacked changes depending on their position. Using normal here as an example once more. If position 3 is knocked out, it reduces the overall chance by 4 because position 3 has a 4 in 16 chance. This changes position 1 and 2 from 6 in 16 odds to 6 in 12, or 50% chance. Similarly, if position 2 were knocked out, it would reduce the odds by 6, because, you know, 6 and 16, you know, so it would change position 1 and 3 to 6 and 10%, or 6 and 10 out of 10, and 4 and 10 respectively, or 60% chance and 40% chance of being targeted by a single target attack. Yay, math! I hope nobody was confused by the way I was saying all that. And that was all for the normal formation! Mostly, you know, because it was the easiest example to use for the bigger explanation, but still, yeah, probably weren't expecting that, were you? Well, unless you're already deep into the knowledge of how formations work, obviously, but yeah. Anyway, yeah, enough about so-called normal. Yeah, let's move on to the defense formation. I use this every once in a while, mostly in the early game, but yeah, generally ignore it otherwise. Now, originally this formation was thought to grant a 25% bonus to defense to all party members, while also reducing speed of all party members by 33%. Though, I should note there's also sources out there that claimed a 25% reduction to speed. Instead, I just want to note that I can't say exactly which one was believed more than the other or whatnot. Yeah, the previously mentioned deep dive revealed that this to be quite wrong, like in both cases, if not even a bit deceiving. So yeah, rather than specifically buffing a particular stat, instead the defense formation apparently flatly reduces all damage, both physical and magical, by 25%. Which is rather notable since it's the only formation that specifically reduces magic damage. However, it also apparently reduces speed for all party members by a whopping 50%. Yeah, again, I would like to note the sources that claim 33 and 25% reduction to speed, but yeah, I am fairly confident that it's 50%. I mean, not that I ever use this much past the beginning of the game when we don't have a lot of speed anyway, so I can only say so much. But anyway, actually, you know what, let's turn you, yeah, put you back in the way that I usually like to have you for this point in the game. Yeah, then we come once again to odds of being targeted by single target abilities, which oddly is somehow a bit more evenly distributed than the normal formation. Why? I don't know. But yeah, it also used to be... Yeah, well, it also used to be believed that defense formation had an even distribution of 33% chance of being targeted all around. It turns out to be as follows. Position 1 is a 6 in 16 or 37% chance. Position 2 is a 5 in 16 or 31.25% chance. And position 3 is also a 5 in 16 chance there. So, moving on to my personal favorite formation that I use something like 90% of the time, I swear, is the attack formation. This formation is all about position 1. Originally, it was thought that the character in position 1 would receive a huge 70% increase of their attack stat, while also suffering a 20% loss to defense. However, the deep dive showed it wasn't quite that lopsided, as it turns out that, again, position 1 alone receives a 50% boost to their attack stat and a 25% reduction to defense. However, what was previously not known, except possibly through casual observation and speculation before, is that position 1 also gets their counterattack rate doubled, and that's especially nice for one particular character later on. More on that later in the Let's Play proper. So anyway, odds of being targeted while in attack formation is more of a covering type formation, which also makes it super useful. Originally, it was thought that position 1 would be targeted 50% of the time, while positions 2 and 3 were equally targeted at 25% chance each. But again, once again, the deep dive revealed that position 1 in fact has a 10 in 16 chance of being targeted, or 62.5%, while positions 2 and 3 both have a 3 in 16 or 18.75% chance. So yeah, characters in the other two positions are very safe from single target attacks for the most part. And that, as someone says, is that the first big guide of the LP in regards to mechanics. I'll be going over more subtle things like individual skills, masters, and other such mechanics in the Let's Play proper. So again, would you kindly watch the regular Let's Play? I'd greatly appreciate it because, whew, man, this one took a while. And the next big one is going to be even bigger. Oh god, I'm not looking forward to that. I'm so not. I have to admit, but... Well, until that time comes, until next video, viewers, arrivederci.